If you're watching this video, this is part 2 of my Starfield 1 year later review. Go ahead and watch part 1 and get my oh so glorious thoughts on Starfield's shaky launch and their numerous updates. Otherwise, what's good, Crown Mob? It's your boy the Mad Prince back at it again with another video. Hey Todd, I'm back again with that thing you love most. Guess what it is?
A lot of well-deserved criticism.
That's right, because I was hyped for Starfield and I felt blue-balled, and now I feel like I'm in a loveless marriage. But then, something lurked out there on the horizon. To some, it looked like hope. To me, it looked like a sperm donation fully grown, looking for the source of their gene seed. I've been getting into Warhammer 40k a lot lately, and I'm going to be making several references to it, and I apologize for none of it. But in the end, it was only Shattered Space, Bethesda's first and latest attempt to rouse this community to save it from the kingdom of myth they made for themselves. Let's not let it be said that a good DLC can't completely turn a 180 for a game. Cyberpunk managed that, and I have been and always will be a Cyberpunk apologist. Shattered Space revolves around another faction within Starfield's setting, named House Va'ruun. They're a religious organization that worships this entity known as the Great Serpent, and in the past, they got a little crusadery across the known galaxy. Out of all the factions, they're the most mysterious and the ones you have the least interactions with within the base game, because one, there's no quest line specific for them in the base game, and two, 9 out of 10 times you come across one of them, they get a little shooty. The DLC kicks off after jumping to another system and coming across a space station with an automated message of distress that is actively telling you not to enter the space station. So guess what we do?
Hold on, he telling us to go back, bro. He is. Oh, well, go ahead and turn this all around. Ain't nothing for us that way.
No, we take our stupid asses inside the space station because I forgot that I paid money for this experience and need to squeeze every ounce of joy out of this new content. And as you can assume, things are pretty fucked. There are these weird rifts of energy everywhere that prevent you from traveling beyond them, and then there are the phantoms about. And they're not very friendly. Oh shit! You learn that these phantoms were all members of House Va'ruun and were a part of some experiment that gets touched on later on in the story. During this part specifically, you're mostly floating around in 0G. And between the cool religious designs and the encroaching horror swallowing the ship, the level design is pretty decent at this point. Granted, this level is glorified scavenging in an abandoned station, which you've probably done a million times at this point, but it does net you some new armor and weapons in the DLC, which I'll get into later. Anyway, you go around the station to restart the systems. After a quick firefight, the whole station grav jumps to the orbit of Va'ruun Kai, the secret homeworld of House Va'ruun, where you're promptly stopped by border control.
Hold very still and choose your words carefully. They will determine how long you live.
I'm 10 years old, but I'll beat your ass.
And almost on cue, like it was scripted, that's when one of the phantoms show up again, but this one isn't crazy. Well, not as crazy relative to the rest of the ones you just genocided on the space station not 15 minutes ago. Anyway, this new phantom that appears is the leader of House Va'ruun, and despite everyone seeing them, you're the only one who can hear him talk coherently. Most likely because you've been smoking that Starborn shit.
You smoking my shit? Hell no, fuck with your shit? Hell no.
Long story short, the people of House Va'ruun asked for your help to resolve their crisis and save their leader. But for whatever reason, they can't accept your help until you get press-ganged into their religion, where you become the chosen envoy of the Great Serpent. Jehovah's Witnesses are less intrusive than this.
Read about Jehovah's Witness? How about Buddhism?
Then you go through this trial meant to initiate you in the House Va'ruun. You do get the slight lore dump on how the faction started, but it only serves to get you high and give you a title that all the NPCs can refer to you by in dialogue.
I grant you the title of Vindicator. All will know you. All will trust you.
Bullshit. And this is the first of several instances where you see that the concept of player choice doesn't exist in this DLC. More on that later. Then you meet the High Council, who requested your help to save their religious leader and put an end to the crisis you stumbled into. Because what you saw back on the space station was only the 30-day trial version of the bullshit. On Varun Kai, things are significantly worse. When you kill a phantom on a planet, and you will, an insufferable amount of times, portals open up by the corpses and creatures spill out of them, which you also have to kill. So that's fun. Anasko Varun ran an experiment that opened a portal in between universes called the Vortex to contact the Great Serpent. For what reason and why people were turned into phantoms as a result is currently unknown. But here is where we learn that the House Varun faction is ruled by several smaller houses that each operate vital functions that aid in governing and operating the city. And guess what? They're all using this crisis to get what they want by leveraging the vital resources you need to save them, even though they're the ones asking you to save them.
What the fuck is wrong with you people?
It's bullshit. And joining them offers no tangible benefits as far as I can see. Other factions gives you weapons and gear or unlock ships or exclusive ship parts. Not these snake worshipping fucks. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a good chance to talk about the city of Dasra and the surrounding area, since you'll be spending most of the time schlepping your way around the place. According to the story, the city was much larger until it blew up, and many of the remnants of the city can be explored in the surrounding landscape. Some might call that unfortunate, others a cheap way for devs to cop out on the level design. Whatever. The most defining feature in the landscape would be the Citadel, which you've seen in all the promotional material for the DLC. We'll get more familiar with that later. The crater around the Citadel has remnants of the destroyed parts of Dasra, complete with gravity wells, which are fun to travel through, and there's plenty of new enemy types if you're looking to farm equipment. Outside the city is a mountainous wasteland with secret stations, farms, waste shrines, more of those phantoms, and House of Varun zealots, who we learn are members of an exiled house to the larger House Varun faction. And somehow, Spacers and Crimson Fleet heard about the shenanigans going on, so naturally they wanted themselves a piece. The Rev 8 update, which I talked about in the previous video, is going to be pretty handy here. Pretty often, most of the missions you get will be in Dasra itself, but will often take you outside to the far reaches of the surrounding lands. At this point, I think I'm gonna pump the brakes for a second and to point out the Doom fetish that seems to be here. A lot of modern sci-fi stories take from Doom. The world of Varun Kai is a desolate place just like Arrakis. House Varun are basically the Fremen worshipping some abstract god. And you are Paul Atreides, who comes as if ordained by that same god and potentially lead them into a new galaxy-wide jihad.
Wait until I...
Whoa. Spoilers.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. Again. So let's take it back to the story. At this point in the quest line, not a lot is open to you. That means some side quests and certain services will only open up the further you progress through the main storyline. Remember when I said that the houses of House Varun were holding resources hostage for leverage? Well, now's the time to wrestle that from them. You're given 3 separate quests, each one for a specific house that has something that you need in order to breach the Citadel and put an end to these wacky activities. You can only do one at a time, but you can do them in any order. And I'm gonna say this now, the names of all these people in the excessive use of apostrophes and proper nouns is fucking ridiculous. House Dukef oversees commerce, House Varal runs the Ministry of State, and House Kadik is the Ministry of Conjunction. They are all selfish and self-serving and want you to solve their problems. For starters, the head of House Varal wants you to hunt down and kill his son.
And not only did he turn his back on his house,
but the great serpent as well. He is a traitor and must be dealt with as such.
We're starting off strong with this one. And it's not for anything serious. Just because he's fed up with the religious bullshit. Same as me.
So blinded by faith and politics, they don't see how it's destroying us.
House Kadik has been having secret dealings with the House Varun Zealots, which is illegal, to bolster their house's position in the council. But things have gone left, and now the Zealots have kidnapped their people and want to cut a deal.
I don't know where the Zealots are keeping Sahima, but I have a good idea who
Of course
does.
you do. Unfortunately, one of these kidnapped people is a skilled scientist with the knowledge to help with you getting inside the Citadel. Then that's when someone else asks you to kill that same person as well as all the hostages to bury the dealings with the Zealots and just take their research instead.
My position won't allow me to be blunt. I'll still make it clear. Should the hostages not survive, Rasma would blame the Zealots and cut all ties.
But given that it's a stupid-ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
Not only is that a bad choice, but it also doesn't have any real consequences for the story. In fact, it only hinders you, because the scientist you're trying to save is one of the 2 new companions in this DLC. So no, don't kill them. House Kuldef, I'm bad at these names. Their mission is the only helpful one in the 3 because it directly furthers the plot of the main DLC story.
Materials and equipment that suggested some highly specialized research. I told UNESCO where those materials had been sent. Weeks later, well, you've seen the Citadel. You know as well as any where we are now.
Anasco went to this secret facility located inside of a dam. Once you make your way down inside, you'll get stopped by a Vortex Phantom. Except this one is completely rational and cognizant.
You are not welcome here. You will leave immediately.
That is, until it attacks you. And this happens several more times the deeper you go into the facilities. It's not long before you start to see those same energy rifts throughout the place, telling you that you're on the right track. That's when you learn that the phantoms you've come across in the facility were really projections, because their real bodies are down there in stasis pods. This was all part of some experiment, and Anasco took something called a vortex interlock from them to presumably replicate it elsewhere. To what end? We still don't know. Unfortunately, you need one of those interlocks to breach the Citadel, which will kill the real bodies of the phantoms who've been hounding you this entire time.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So you take all the remaining interlocks and leave, which destroys the dam and dooms a nearby farm that relied on that water.
I mean, fuck them, you know?
Now, at some point of doing any 3 of these missions, you'll get another mission that has you traveling to a cave to speak to Anako Varun himself.
I have seen visions of Anasco searching for one bold enough to enter the heart of the vortex. And now that you are here, I know your arrival was no accident.
And honestly, this is probably my favorite mission out of all the ones in the main quest. You go into this cave following ethereal footsteps and glowing blue winds, Skyrim, and eventually you reach the end of the cave where Anasco talks to you.
But time is short. The bridge collapses. The gate is still open. The experiment still runs. Find me in the scaled citadel. I will wait for you there.
Now, at this point, you may be wondering, why is this my favorite mission? Well, after meeting Anasco, the whole place turns into a Dead Space mission pretty quickly. The long trek to Anasco through the caves builds suspense and tension, and it turns into a survival horror scene with dozens of vortex creatures appearing in droves as you try to escape. Now, I was a pretty high-level character at this point, so I was relatively unworried, but for sub-level 50 players, this will come at you pretty heavy. Now, is this the best execution for the tone it's going for? No, there are plenty of better survival horror experiences out there, but the simplicity of the concept and the vibes were good here. There wasn't a lot to this mission, and it wasn't long, but the experience overall I found enjoyable. Okay, so at this point, I want to talk about the new item additions you get in this DLC, because it's largely disappointing. House Varun always had interesting weapons and equipment unique to their faction in the base game, and if you mod any of it right, it'd be effective to have in any combat situation. The problem here is that none of it is as accessible as you might like. For example, when you do any of the other faction quests, you get equipment unique to that faction or easy access to it in some way, or like in the way of vendors. When you join Constellation, you get Constellation gear. When you join the UC Vanguard, you get UC Vanguard armor. When you join the Freestar Rangers, they give you a uniform, but you also get a unique gun. House Varun doesn't do any of that here. The only real way to get the new items in this game is to loot it from the bodies of phantoms and or zealots. House Varun has always had really dope suit designs, and why I'm not just given one in the main quest line is beyond me. And if you think that going to any of the vendors to buy the new items is the way to go, guess again. I see two House Varun weapons. This is fucking stupid. Hell, one of the vendors won't even let you look at the stock until you get far enough into the quest line.
You do not have approval to trade with me.
There is a side quest called Legacy of the Fang where you will be able to get a unique set of armor and a weapon, but you don't get to keep it unless you kill the person you delivered it to, which, even if it's an RPG, seems pretty extreme to be deliberately pushed to that point for unique items. So in short, you join the Jehovah's Witnesses with attitude, who have all this unique armor and gear that's hard to come by in the across in the base game, only to have to go scrounging for it like some common scavenger. It's a shit way to get people to explore the surrounding landscape because you'd only be grinding for loot. And that's only if you were interested in getting the loot in the first place. Alright, let's wrap this story up. At this point, you have everything you need to breach the Citadel. You get a cool light show and you go off on your own. Apparently, according to the council, they don't know what's in the Citadel and it's better for them that only you risk your well-being by checking it out.
Bitch, you got me fucked up.
You know, despite the fact that you were conscripted into their Cthulhu cult so they can take the aid that they asked of you. I should have never come to this goddamn planet. Anyway, you traverse your way through what's effectively ground zero and make your way across the Citadel's outer structure, dealing with more of the same enemies you've seen thus far. Once inside the Citadel, you'll meet a Nosco again who'll tell you
The reactor level is below us. Bring the interlock there. We will need it if we wish to see this through.
To where you'll finally see just what the fuck caused this entire planet to shit the bed. You'll get a limited chance to explore the Citadel despite the energy fields and constant assault by the Phantoms, which aesthetically is interesting but feels wasteful because of wait.
Whoa. Spoilers.
So, anyway, after trekking, you make your way down to the lower levels and ultimately come face to face with Todd Howard's take on the grim dark future.
Come, see what you have helped to save.
You're standing in the facility with dozens of stasis pods filled with people. A Nosco shows up and I'll spare you what he says, but the enlightened religious leader is suddenly in his villain era. Remember the dam with the Phantoms who originally couldn't die and kept respawning? Well, the experiment that turned the planet to shit was replicating that situation, but at a much greater scale. Why, you ask? Because Nosco wanted to renew the Serpent's Crusade his grandfather started when House Varun was founded, with an army of super soldiers who unknowingly respawn when felled.
Man, what type of shit?
The grim dark future has come to Arrakis. This is such a what the fuck moment, not because it's supposed to be this great reveal, because it's not, but because there wasn't any real inclination that starting a homicidal jihad across the known galaxy was in the cards at any point. You expect me to believe that none of the leadership was privy to this bullshit? Yes, it's part of the faction's lore, because they've done it before, but it feels so matter of fact, like there's no real suspense or stakes because of this. And this is the part where the story gets progressively worse with its choices, because there aren't any choices at all. You can either release the Phantoms from the stasis pods or terminate their life functions. But the reason I say these are not really choices is because nothing you choose affects anything going forward. It feels like Mass Effect 3 all over again, but the difference is that there aren't enough people in this fandom willing to create a mass delusion in the form of a fan conspiracy to cope with the shitty choices or lack thereof. Regardless of what you choose here, the Zealots who've likely seen this light show that got you into the Citadel are looking to take control of whatever horrible experiment Anasco created. You race back through the Citadel, killing Phantoms and Zealots at this point until you get to the very heart of the experiment.
We risk losing everything to the Zealots. So, the gate must cycle one more time, shifting the Citadel into the vortex and back again. The Zealots inside will be cast into the void. But, I am sorry to say, so will you. It is the only way. The Serpent's Crusade is too important to risk. The work must carry on. You have served honorably. Your deeds here and your sacrifice will be heralded down through the generations.
Does he look like a bitch?
And this motherfucker has the nerve, the audacity, the fucking gumption to ask you to submit to certain death in the name of their fucking snake god.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
You know what? I think I now know why the Emperor of Mankind couldn't keep his little nigglets on a short leash. So as you can imagine, I firmly but respectfully declined. With fucking gunfire. So everything's gone to shit. Phantoms are trying to kill you, Zealots are trying to kill you, Anasco is trying to kill you. You kill him multiple times, but he keeps coming back, like a Me Too accusation. Oh, my black ass is gonna get sued. So you shut down parts of the machine and now it's going critical mass. It's time to get the hell out of the Citadel. You make your way back through the Citadel under constant attack from everybody. Anasco keeps popping back up, but you can ignore his ass. Then you finally exit the Citadel, a cutscene plays where you see it get consumed in a portal, and you black out. And wake back up in an abandoned house with the very useless High Council.
Slowly. You have been through a lot.
For the record, why they didn't just take me to the hospital and brought me to this freaking house instead is beyond me. Because they do have a hospital. We've seen it. We've had a mission objective in there. Whatever. Anyway, the ensuing conversation with the High Council is largely uninspiring because Anasco is most certainly dead at this point and their citadel has been dusted into space. So now you're presented with the last two choices of the DLC. The first is to choose a new leader in the absence of Anasco. The next is to restart the new crusade across the galaxy. Whoever you choose doesn't matter much, but after the choice is made, you get the abandoned house that they decided to revive you in. That's it. That's the end of the whole DLC. You get a whole unfurnished house and nothing else. No cool weapon, no cool armor. The audacity that these motherfuckers would think that I would spend another second on this planet is insane. Which is why, when choosing a new leader, say none of them are worthy. Double down on it even. They'll call you a heretic. Fine. You know what? I was ready to choose violence the moment that jackass wanted me to kill his son. So you're an enemy of Dazra now, and you get to lead a jihad all on your own. You're nothing like the Zealots, that's for damn sure. You're built different. The spirit of Conrad Kurz himself walks with you. Let them know fear. Send their souls into the void the same way you did to their precious leader. Fuck them all. Alright, so now that all that's been said and I'm now forever the Great Serpent's op, let's talk about the DLC overall. First of all, Bethesda's standards for what they consider to be an expansion have drastically changed over the years. Shiver and Owls was an expansion. Dragonborn was an expansion. Far Harbor and Nuka World, both expansions. Shattered Space was a glorified campaign at best. The way I structured this review with breaking up the story into 3 separate parts was because the main story itself isn't very long. 8 missions by my count. You could clear this entire DLC in an afternoon if you wanted to. The story had a terrible habit of getting bogged down by a bunch of tasks that did little to add to the lore of House Va'ruun or contribute little to the immediate narrative. Also, the concept of political rivalries in a faction could have been a better story point if it was actually explored. Like if aligning yourself with one of the houses yielded a different and unique series of quests in the larger main quest. Bethesda has done something like that before. You know it if you ever played Dawn Guard when you pick between joining the vampires or remaining loyal to the Dawn Guard early on in the quest line. The setting in New Area of Dazra and the surrounding lands were marketed as being handcrafted, and on many levels that's true. But in my opinion, every new location and bit of architecture just felt hollow. I wasn't fascinated by delving more into the inner workings of this new mysterious faction that up until that point the player has only ever known to be largely hostile. And the new items added were very sparse and not as easily accessible for my liking. I had to go out of my way to obtain them from enemies rather than getting them as rewards or purchasing them. Overall, Shattered Space offered us a new faction, new armors and weapons, and a new environment to explore. But when you delve into each one of those aspects, you come away with the feeling that it's all hollow and half-assed. We asked for content with more substance, and that's what they gave us. But somehow there was no soul to that substance to leave us with a lasting impression. In terms of Shattered Space being good, bad, or ugly, it's ugly. There was a lot of potential here that just went wasted. They presented concepts and ideas that could have made for a greater experience, but they don't execute it in a way where you walk away feeling fulfilled. And it's a damn shame when their creation DLCs leave me with a far greater impression. Maybe the issue that they had with this is scale, because technically the scale of this DLC, even though the content itself seemed minor and smaller compared to other stuff, the scale was a lot bigger, but you know, it is what it is. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my review of Shattered Space. I'm sure there's people out there that feel different. I just want to make it clear, I do like Starfield. I like it a lot. It's just that it feels like there can be more here. Like the content that they just had with this just felt uninspired to me. That's just my opinion. Feel however you want about it. In fact, tell me how you feel about it in the comment section down below. But that's all the time I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Remember to abuse that sub button, caress that like button, and as always, keep your crowns crooked and stay classy. Deuces.